Welcome to the Carriker Chronicles, the People Show. Checking the pulse of Husker Nation. Ladies and gentlemen, the pulse of Husker Nation is beating fast, healthy, and excited. What a weekend for Husker sports it was, in particular football and volleyball. If you missed it, go back and check out my gut reaction. Nebraska. Okay, a very game. Northwestern walked into Memorial Stadium and tried to make it a game, and they did. They fought, they scratched, and clawed. Nebraska found a way to win that football game, overcame some adversity. If you missed my gut reaction to that football game, go back and check it out. Also, Nebraska Volleyball, the number 2 team in the country at the time, takes down number 1 Wisconsin. And now the polls haven't come out just yet, but we know Nebraska Volleyball is going to be the new number 1 volleyball team in the entire country. Now, the show today, okay, there was a couple things I thought about talking about when it came to a topic. The first topic that came to my mind was Nebraska football is in control of their own destiny, referring to the Big Ten West division and them possibly making a run at the Big Ten West title. Now, I looked at the Big Ten West standings. We're not there just yet, but I'll explain that in a minute because I do want to give you some interesting stats about volleyball and then come back to football. All right, so real quick, the volleyball girls, as we know, new number 1 team in the country, 19-0. I went back and looked through their schedule up to this point in the season so far again. Of their 19 games, they have played 8 ranked teams. That means 42% of their schedule has been against ranked opponents. I'm assuming Wisconsin's going to be number 2 in the country when the new volleyball polls come out. So that means they beat the number 2 team in the country in Wisconsin and the current number 3 team in the country, which is Stanford. Now, Stanford plays number 8 Oregon later today. We'll see how that game shakes out. But ladies and gentlemen, if you want to show the new number 1 volleyball team in the country some love, smash that like button or this is what you talk about when you talk about being battle tested. All right, Nebraska volleyball teams up to this point in the season, smash that like button as well. I know I'm jumping all over the place, but back to football, ladies and gentlemen. So I looked at the Big Ten West standings, and I don't want to get ahead of ourselves because we need to go to a bowl game first. Then we can talk about other things or not, depending on what happens. But I took a gander at the Big Ten West Division standings. There's 4 teams that are realistically left in the Big Ten West to compete for that Big Ten West Division title. It's Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, and Nebraska. Now, alas, we play Iowa, we play Wisconsin. The problem is we have the same Big Ten record as Minnesota, and they have the tiebreaker over us because they beat us. So I'm not going to talk about us controlling our own destiny just yet. I'm not going to talk about the Big Ten West Division just yet. Here's what needs to happen. Nebraska needs to win at least 1 more game or 2 before I'm going to talk about it. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. Also, Minnesota needs to at least lose 1 more game. Then we control our own destiny as long as we keep winning. But I did take a look at Minnesota's schedule as well. A lot of similar teams to Nebraska on this schedule. Okay, they play Michigan State just like us. They play Purdue just like us. They play Wisconsin just like us. They also have Illinois. But there's a team on here named Ohio State. There's no more Ohio States or Michigans left on Nebraska's schedule. So here in the very short future, as long as Nebraska keeps winning, we may be in control of our own destiny, but I'm not going to get ahead of ourselves just yet. Here's what I want to talk about today, because this is appropriate for right here, right now, in my humble opinion. Is Nebraska football in a good spot? I think so. Here's why. I'm going to give you 5 reasons why, and I'm going to give you my 2 biggest concerns that I have as well. Got to try to be objective on this show. Now, real quick, before I dive into all that, as you know, Nebraska's overall record is 4-3. Now, I get all sorts of messages from fans, friends, family, people at the university. Some of them are like, Adam, you're way too negative. No, I'm just trying to be objective and realistic. I had some people message me, you're just happy we have a winning record. Your expectations are way too low. Have you watched Nebraska football the past half decade? All I can do is give my opinion. It's all I've ever tried to do. I back it up with stats, facts, and evidence. It doesn't mean I'm right or wrong. But that's all I can do, ladies and gentlemen. It's all I've ever tried to do and have some fun in the process. Now, I will say this. Right now, okay, especially with the opponents we have left on the second half of the schedule, all I really care about is did we win the game? That's all I really care about. There's going to be some beautiful. There's going to be some ugly. Probably a lot of low-scoring, close games. All I care about at this point is did we go to a bowl game and did we win the most recent game we played? At the end of the day, that's what really matters. And if you agree with me on that, let me know in the comments below. Now, yes, there are some very ugly things that need to improve for this team. We all know that. Okay, but do you realize that Heinrich Haarberg is 4-1 as our starting quarterback? Also, we're the state champs of Illinois now. I'm just going to pause and let that sink in. All right, real quick, Is Nebraska football in a good spot? I think so. And here's 5 reasons why I believe so and my 2 biggest concerns for the rest of the season. Before I light that candle, dive into it and have some fun, ladies and gentlemen, real quick. This show is brought to you by DPS Construction, all right? And here's why. Because they do a phenomenal job. The owner has integrity. I met with Jason at Cracker Barrel a couple of weeks ago, and he told me how he got the company, how it came to be, how he came to grow it, and it's a pretty cool story. It's filled with integrity, challenges, ups and downs. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a company with a lot of integrity, ran by a man with high character. Jason Armstrong, DPS Construction. Here's the deal. If you're a general contractor, building owner, or property manager looking for concrete repair or work done in the Omaha metro area, such as street paving, building floors, and parking lots, check out dpsconstruction.net. Again, that's dpsconstruction.net. All right, 5 reasons why I believe Nebraska football is in a good spot right here, right now. Number 1, we have a legit defense. The best defense we've had, in my opinion, in the last 14 years since 2009. Now, that 2009 defense, as we know, was phenomenal. Number 1 scoring defense in the entire country that year, giving up 10 points per game. You could argue they're the best Nebraska football, the best Husker defense ever. You can make that argument. Going all the way back to 1971, when that legendary defense gave up an average of 8 points per game. Okay, different era, different type of offenses, different types of football. Okay, even the 3 phenomenal national championship teams in the mid-90s gave up more points per game. Obviously, they were phenomenal. But I'm just saying, in the last 14 years since 2009, we have a legit defense, and in my opinion, the best defense we've had in a decade and a half. All right, we have a chance to win every single game because if your opponent can't score, they can't win. All right. Now, there's not an elite, barely a good offense left on our schedule. Maybe Maryland. Okay, number 2. We tend to get stronger as the game goes along. Now, this hasn't always been true every single game this year, okay, but more often than not this year, we do. As ugly as Saturday was versus Northwestern at times, we actually outscored Northwestern by 4 points in the second half/fourth quarter. Now, before you chuckle at that, because I chuckled writing that down, like 4 whole points. Ladies and gentlemen, I said it before and I'll say it again. There's going to be a lot of ugly, beautiful, low-scoring, very close football games. We're going to need every single point we can get. And my dad, and I've said this before on the show, when I was very young, I used to get really nervous, especially for a big game. He'd go, Adam, it's not that hard. All you got to do is outscore your opponent by 1 point. We outscored Northwestern by 4 times that amount on Saturday. And I know as ridiculous as that sounds, 4 points is a big deal in every single game going forward. Reason number 3, I believe Nebraska football is in a good spot, at least at this moment in time. This is a very fluid situation, as we know. But right now, the number 3 reason I think they're in a good spot is this team just found a way to win back-to-back the kind of games that we've lost in recent years. Now, I could argue Illinois and Northwestern, okay, those are games, the types of close games that we may have found a way to lose in the past half decade or so. We found a way to win them. In other words, this team is learning how to win. Okay, reason number 4, we have a warrior at quarterback. And yes, he needs to get better at certain things, but watch him run the football. Just to give you one example of why this kid's easy to root for, okay? Watch him run the football. This is the type of kid who teammates will rally around, want to play for and with. All right, and now part 2 of number 4 is actually Malachi Coleman, the deep threat we haven't had all year. Now, here's the deal. I've talked about how if I was an opposing defensive coordinator playing Nebraska this year, I wouldn't put 8 guys in the box, I'd put 9. Number 1, we don't have an offensive line that's great at pass protection, so you're not going to have to cover for long. Number 2, we don't have quarterbacks who are great at the deep ball. And number 3, we don't have anyone who can stretch the field as a pass catcher. The closest we had was Thomas Fidone, okay? And Malachi Coleman is a young guy, talented, as we know, who's getting an opportunity to start because of a bunch of injuries at the wide receiver position. But here's the thing. As an all-around wide receiver, yeah, he's got to get better, and he's going to, and his future is uber bright. But the one thing he can do right here, right now, maybe the thing this offense needs the most. Give us a vertical, deep threat to stretch the defense. If we can take a couple of shots, especially early in games, whether we complete them or not, obviously if we complete them, that's phenomenal. But even if we don't, just making the defense respect that and back up and just have the fear of getting beat over the top can open up so many things underneath. And then if we start to connect on those deep threats like we did last Saturday, and essentially that fake option, deep pass, 44-yard touchdown from Heinrich Haarberg to Malachi Coleman, that's what sealed the win for Nebraska over Northwestern. It really was. If we can connect on a couple of those, this could be the biggest thing that our offense was missing, other than taking care of the football, This maybe have been the biggest thing our offense has been missing all year is a deep threat down the field. All right, number 5. Well, folks, Dave Portnoy, the Barstool Sports president, if you don't know who that is, he kind of made a mockery because he's a Michigan guy. When he came in town from Michigan, he said, let's make Nebraska mediocre again. Well, we're mediocre again, or at least we got to at least win 2 more games. Okay, we have 5 games left. We got to at least win 2 of them to prove that we're mediocre, at least. I know it sounds crazy, but to go to a bowl game. Okay, but here's my point. Win at least 2 more games, and all 5 of those games are winnable, to be clear, to validate that we're at least mediocre. But the reason number 5 that I feel good about where Nebraska football is Matt Rhule. He's the coach that's going to make us good again, just like Temple, just like he did at Baylor. I don't know if he'll make us great, okay? But I hope so, and time will tell. But let's start by being mediocre, winning at least 2 more games the rest of this year, and we can definitely win more. Then get good, then whatever's next after that. Okay, like Coach Rhule says, it's a process, day by day. Now, here are my 2 biggest concerns for the Husker football team the rest of this year. Number 1, injuries on offense. Good Lord. My rookie year at the Rams, back when it was in St. Louis, good old Edward Jones Dome, 2007, we had Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt, Orlando Pace, Steven Jackson all get hurt. I'd never seen a team get injured, so many injuries on a team like that until my rookie year in the league. Speedy recovery to all the guys who've been hurt so far this year on Nebraska's offense, but the injuries are a concern, and Marcus Satterfield has his work cut out for him. Number 2 is turnovers, my second biggest concern. We're 127th in the country in turnover margin at -7 on the year, including 7 lost fumbles. That doesn't even include the other times we put the ball on the turf and gotten it back. We had 3 fumbles on Saturday that we didn't lose. The ball's on the ground way too much. Now, I do feel we're much better than Illinois and Northwestern, okay? Those games shouldn't have been as close as they were. Also, we're not good enough to keep turning the ball over like that and beat teams like Wisconsin and Iowa, because those teams don't beat themselves. Now, I know I just shared my biggest concerns, but here's the deal. I actually do feel pretty optimistic about the Nebraska football team the rest of the season. So here are my questions for you. Let me know your response in the comments below. Are you as optimistic about the rest of the Nebraska football season as I am? Number 2, is Matt Rhule the coach that can eventually make us good or even great again? And number 3, and I'm going to read my own tweet. You can follow me on Facebook and Twitter, #cheapplug. Great weekend for Husker sports. Only thing that bothers me is you have the number 1 and 2 teams in the country in volleyball, both undefeated, playing each other. That match should have been prime time in the national spotlight, and it wasn't. That bothers me. Does that bother you as well? Let me know in the comments below. As always, check out CarrikerChronicles.com. Go Big Red, and always remember to throw the ball.